Hey everybody, welcome to the show. Today's going to be nice and brief and hopefully very edifying for you. I've talked about these things in many places and many times. Most recently, as of the time of this video, I released a couple of very relatively shorter videos that are bird's eye view, like Shadows of Antichrist, the Mark of the Beast Through Time, or Why Do You Notice Only Half the Problem? Before that, there was another short one called Zionism is Jesuitism. Very important, and that's in the Synagogue of Satan series. All of these are relatively short videos, about an hour, maybe a little bit shorter, talking about these topics that are very, very important. Most people are not aware of the things that I'm going to be sharing with you today and the things that I've shared with you in these other previous short videos. So hopefully it will be very edifying to you and you will edify others in return. Both of these videos that I mentioned, actually the three also with the Zionism is Jesuitism, are bird's eye views of something very, very important, which is the end of time and what the Bible has to say about the end of history. The end of history that most people are completely unaware of. What a thought. What a thought, isn't it? What a thought. That evil horizon, or the evil on the horizon, is not wokery, it's not Zionism, and it's not communism, and it's not Islam. It is a Christian nationalist, religious nationalist, false revival, false golden age, new world order type of situation. It's going to be a return to medieval Catholicism, when the Catholic Church was dominant over the world, over the minds of the people, and the Pope was revered as the presence of God on earth, and people were very religious and superstitious. The Jews and Muslims are going to be converted. There's going to be signs and wonders, false peace, prosperity, all sorts of these types of things that are coming down the pipeline and that already are right now. The Protestants are going to reunite with their mother. There's going to be ecumenism, revival, quote unquote, of the visible church. Atheists are going to become more religious, even if they don't believe in these things. They're just going to participate because, well, it's better than living in a Muslim country. It says, was it Christopher Dawkins? I think he said that. So this is what you're dealing with, folks. The Bible doesn't say that there's going to be a revival or that the visible church is going to, basically be the true church and be reviving, and there's going to be true peace and golden age before Jesus returns. It says these things will happen, but in the context of how these things will happen, it is very evil, and it is delusion and destruction. The Bible warns of false teachers, false apostles, false religion, false Christs, signs and wonders, delusions, deception, all these types of things that many people are ignorant of. They are ignorant that the fact that the future that they're going towards is not what they think it is. It's not what they think it is. Most Christians today, if they do study history, they unfortunately only look at about 200 years worth of history, from about the 1800s to today, with Zionism and communism. That's about it. That is the extent of their history. And that's not necessarily bad. You should know your history, especially in the last 200 years, what happened. But it is bad in the sense that you don't have a full picture of that history, and you don't understand all of human history that comes before that. The devil's been around a long time, folks. I've said this many times. You're not going to figure out his movements just looking at 3% of human history. You need to look from the very beginning. And the Bible tells you what happened in the very beginning with the Garden of Eden, then the antediluvian world, then the Tower of Babel with Nimrod, and that whole sun-worshipping religion that has continued ever since. Okay, so you need to understand that part of it to understand what's happening today. Otherwise you won't. You'll be caught up in the delusion. So make sure you study that history. Now I've done the heavy lifting for you in my library, 950 plus hours around that amount. About 950 hours. And 950 hours, man, that's so much content. It just astounds me, really does. All glory to God. I don't know how I would have done that without God being in my life. 950 hours in 3 years. Never mind all the things I've written and books and things published. 950 hours for you. And half of that, I would say, approximately, is material related to eschatology and end times. The other half is important theology, edifying things, encouragement, gospel-related things, but probably half, I'd say roughly 400-something hours is end times-related materials and studies and news updates and everything else. So there's a lot of heavy lifting that I've done for you so that you can be edified on these topics, and you don't have to go and hunt down all these rabbit holes and do the research and figure out what's right and what's not right and so on. The evidence is presented for you right there, very cleanly, very succinctly, very detailed, so that you can be edified. So make sure that you check it out. There's a lot of books, there's a lot of study guides, there's research materials that I've saved and highlighted with the title in the PDF of where to look on the page, so you can literally just go straight to the source. I've done a lot of work to organize that library and to make it very, very relatively easy, considering the amount of content that's there for you to be able to use. So get edified on the truth, get edified on these things. Don't go the way of the wind like most people will go when these things come to pass. If you're new here, I've made these recent shorter videos that I just mentioned, like Why Do You Notice Only Half the Problem? Shadows of Antichrist. This video, Zionism is Jesuitism. These 4 main ones, they're, like I said, about an hour. I don't know how long this one will be. My goal is not to make it too long, but my goal is with these videos is to pique your interest. I'm not going to look at articles. I'm not going to look at Bible verses. I'm not going to look at, books or anything like that in these videos. My goal is to simply pique your interest, because there's a lot to be said, obviously, on these topics. A lot that is not being said by the majority of the people that people listen to. So hopefully these things will pique your interest, because there's a lot to learn. Again, I've made that journey hopefully much easier for you by doing the heavy lifting with all of the work that I've done. So that means all you have to do is just sit and watch with an open mind, hopefully a notebook, and don't be complacent. Evaluate the evidence. Let the evidence speak for itself. Don't take it as my opinion or whatever. Just look at the evidence. Just look at the evidence. That's all I ask anybody, because that's what I do. I look at the evidence. If you're a seasoned Fennec Fox and you've watched my videos for quite a while and you're aware of these types of things, then I've made these shorter videos. I've put them in the End Time series, although the Zionism and Jesuitism is in the Synagogue of Satan series. But anyway, same thing pretty much. At the end of the day, these are resources for you to share with others. They're shorter videos. They're bird's eye view type of videos. Hopefully that will give you talking points. Whether you share the video or not doesn't really matter to me. People just need to learn the information. So my goal, if you have been listening to me, is that you have some talking points, some brief talking points, lightning round, that you can address people with to wake them up out of the delusion that they're in, whether they're in MAGA, the leftists are the big bad deep state delusion, or they've upgraded from that and they're in the Zionist, JQ issue is the deep state. And now we've made the deep state into the Jewish problem. So everybody is in some form of matrix that they're in. And until you snap out of the dialectical systems of the devil, you are trapped, because you're being moved towards the desired outcome wherever you happen to be. Now, I want to talk about the echo chamber before we get started, really, because it's an important thing to realize that Satan has always had an echo chamber. Satan has always had an echo chamber, folks. If you're the devil and you need to control people to maintain power and deceive them, then it stands to reason, because the devil's been around since the beginning, that he has always had a means to constantly deceive people into his grasp, into his world system, into his matrix, pumping out deception and controlling what people perceive. So the echo chamber has been around since the very beginning. In the ancient world, that echo chamber was primarily created and done, administered through imperial power, right? The various empires with their god king at the helm, whether it was Nebuchadnezzar or Pharaoh or whoever else, the kings of Persia, Alexander the Great. Of course, people before that with Nimrod and everything else. So it's just the imperial system. And that imperial system had its various religious orders, religious systems, superstitions, traditions, everything else. That continued well up until, I would say, the French Revolution with the Catholic Church. That continued. That same system of governing continued. Of course, the French Revolution was a very important inflection point. And most people don't understand because they don't study the French Revolution, and especially how it relates to Bible prophecy. But some main things that happened during the French Revolution is that you had the printing press. Around that time, it was before that, but around that time, the Protestants had already been rebelling. People were moving to America. You had the Ottoman Empire pushing and frustrating the beast in various ways. And of course, by the mid-1800s, the Ottoman Empire, basically dissolved. Its time for judgment had come to an end. The sixth trumpet had come to an end. That's why, again, we're at the end of the end. But nevertheless, I talk about that in my End Time series. You had many elements that all coincided around that point in time to where it forced the beast to do something different. It forced the beast to do something different. All of these things are critical to understand the trajectory of history and to understand where we are in time and how things work around you. Very, very critical. Satan no longer could enforce his echo chamber through power, through coercion, through imperialism. He had to instead engage in information warfare. Of course, he's always deceived. He's always been a deceiver. But the way that deception has manifested since the French Revolution has been very different than most of human history. Do you get it? Because of the nature of the things I just explained. So the Jesuits were created as the PSYOP division of the Vatican, going out into the world to do various things like spying on monarchs, using theaters to shape culture, fomenting revolutions, having universities where they would educate people, and so on in the beast morality and control culture that way. All of the things that you see today. All of the things that you see today. So, on top of that though, today, right now, Satan has other tools. He has artificial intelligence. He has the internet. He has social media. He has the news machine. He's able to control and steer the masses like never before because we're very close to the end and God has authorized the devil to take control of the world, to deceive the wicked so that they can be destroyed. So you cannot vote out the devil. You cannot vote out the true deep state. Okay, the deep state is the deep state. It's been around since a very long time. You're not going to vote it out. You're not going to be the one conquering the devil. The devil is going to be conquered by God because God was going to obtain glory over the devil. So he's given him authority to do his thing. So very important to you understand that. So anyway, the echo chamber has always been around, but today it's worse than ever before because we are at the end of the end. Very important. Most people do not understand that the echo chamber has been around since the beginning. That's an important point. And most people don't understand the nature of that echo chamber and how it shapes up today. You can see very clearly by looking at medieval Catholicism that the Catholic Church did many things to try to control people's perception. It limited Bibles, it burned people's translations when they tried to translate the Bible, it persecuted people through inquisitions, etc., etc. It had power and it exercised that power for 42 months, right? 1260 days, which is really 1260 years in time. It exercised power to control perception. At some point, that iron grip was broken. It was broken by all of the aforementioned things that I previously mentioned. And so it had to change. It had to change how it's gripping people's necks. Not obviously, but surreptitiously, through deception, through information warfare, through culture shaping, through seductions and revolutions and dialectics, and bringing people to this common mentality once again where they will gladly accept being choked by the hand because they think it's the will of God. And this is where we are approaching very rapidly, my friends. So you have to understand these things. Otherwise, you will be deceived. People were made aware previously of the liberal echo chamber through things like Trump, MAGA, nationalism, etc., all the things that you see in full swing today. But this was a controlled awakening, my friends. It was a controlled awakening. It was designed to move the Overton window and herd the sheep from one pen to another, to the desired pen. You're not out of the echo chamber if you think the deep state is the liberals or the Democrats. You're also not out of the echo chamber if you think the deep state is the Zionist government, the Jewish situation. You're not out of the deep state. You're not out of the narrative yet. You're not out of the echo chamber. So again, please watch those previous videos. Today is about looking honestly at that echo chamber and considering it in light of all of human history, as well as what the Bible has to say. The Bible says the devil gave his throne and power and great authority to the papacy. And that papacy is the continuation of the pagan empires from the very beginning. It is Satan's mystery religion on earth. Empire, really, because Catholicism is an empire first, and then a religion, proclaiming the morality of the devil, his version of the gospel, which has always been by works and knowledge, tradition, not by the truth, which is life, which is the only way. The Bible also says that this power that I just described to you suffered what seemed, not actually, but what seemed like a mortal wound. And it died, and then it resurrects and comes back into the world, and people marvel after this power. They marvel after this power, and of course they believe it's the will of God, and they are sucked into delusion and destroyed. Today, my friends, these words are nearing their full fulfillment. As we head into the last pages, the last years of human history. If you look at, I didn't really write this down, but I just remembered it now, but if you look at the coming 7 years, as of the time of this video in 2025, in the coming 6 years, there are more intersections and anniversaries than ever in, as far as I know, ever in human history. So many important anniversaries. In 2024 was the 490th anniversary of when the Jesuits were formed. They have two kind of anniversaries. They have 1534 and 1540. 1534 is, I believe, when Loyola got together with his friends and basically they formed their inner circle, and then 1540 is their official date. So you have two anniversaries. They have 490 years since 1534, which is in 2024. 2025 is the 1700th anniversary of the Council of Nicaea, which is going to be an immense ecumenical opportunity to unite the churches. 2026, 250th anniversary of the United States. 2027, the 2000th anniversary of the beginning of Christ's ministry in 27 AD. In 2028, there's some other stuff there. 2029, I believe, is the anniversary of the Vatican healing its wound in 1929. 2030, the 500th, or no, the 2030 is, what is 2030? I forget. 2030 is a big one too. 2031 is like the anniversary, obviously the 2000th anniversary of the crucifixion and ascension, and also the 500th anniversary of the Virgin of Guadalupe, the vision that was seen by, what is his name? Don, I was going to say Don Juan, whatever his name was, but not Don Quixote, not Don Juan, some guy named Don, I think. But anyway, that's 500 years. So there's a lot going on. I missed a few. I'm just recalling them from memory. I've written them down before, but there's more huge anniversaries, momentous anniversaries, spiritually significant anniversaries in these last 7 years from 2024 to 2031. I'm not saying I'm a dispensationalist or there's a 7-year tribulation. I'm just saying these last 7 years are, in my book, the most significant amount of huge anniversaries, all in one. What are the odds, right? What are the odds? What are the odds? And so you can expect a very, very intense time. Imagine the time period that's been from 2020 to 2025. How much crap has happened and how heavy spiritually and emotionally and psychologically it's been with all of the shenanigans that they're doing. Well, imagine another 5-6 years from that, from today until 2031. It's crazy. It's crazy to think. 2034 is the 500th anniversary of the Jesuits. So all of these things tell me, my friends, that the time is near. I look also around at how religion is taking over and fulfilling the Bible's words. And at a rapid pace, they can shape culture so quickly now, way faster than when they had just theaters in Europe and people had to go to plays and they had to get little bulletins mailed to them to know when the play was. Much, much faster. Now everything is on your phone and you can watch a video and suddenly your mind is shaped immediately. So that's why I don't think we have a lot of time. We really don't. I don't see the world going past 2034. I really don't. And that's a pretty amazing thought. So it's going to be a very intense period of time. And it's important during this period of time that you're edified so that you can be inoculated by the truth against all of these deceptions. The elect are not going to be deceived. So take comfort in that. Those who God has chosen to save will be saved. Different times, obviously, for different people, but nevertheless, the elect will not be deceived. Even when they start enforcing worship and enforcing this religious system and proclaiming the morality of the devil disguised as the will of God on earth, and basically culture shaping it and passing laws and whatever else they do, even when they do that, and they start doing that and they start enforcing it, maybe they start throwing people into jail or worse, there is still time for people to repent. There is still time for people to come out of Babylon, because that time is ticking, but until the first bowl judgment drops, there is still time to save people. There's still time to reach people, for people like the thief on the cross to come to the awareness of the truth and refuse the system and come out of it. But my friends, once the bowl judgments begin and you start seeing people busting out in sores and the rivers and lakes and oceans turn blood red, you know that the time is near and there is nobody left to save. The bowl judgments are not made for people to repent. They're made to punish people. So people who bust out in sores, they were never saved to begin with. So that's a very sobering thing. Again, remember that you cannot be lost. If God has purposed to reveal himself to you, then you will be saved. There's nothing to be afraid of. But nevertheless, that should convict our own hearts in our own lives to reach the people around us before that time comes. Because once the bowls start dropping, that's it. It's time for judgment. And the return of Christ is at hand. So we have a lot of work to do until then. Now, your conservative, MAGA, nationalist, Christian, revival movement, whatever, is Catholic. What do I mean by that? Well, I mean exactly that. I mean that modern conservatism has been hijacked by the Catholic Church. Nationalism, conservatism, MAGA, revival, all of this stuff has been hijacked by the Catholic Church. Why? Because the devil is the god of this world, and God has given him authority to pronounce and bring the great delusion upon people for their wickedness. They used Protestants and proxy organizations and secret societies and various orders like the Knights of Malta, the Jesuits, etc., infiltrating countless places, eventually to create a flip from dark to light. We are now in the light side of things. Now people have totally stopped listening to the liberal news media, and of course they think that they're awake because of that. It seems like it's an authentic news source when you go to influencers, right? Various influencers, and that's all by design. The design is to make you believe that you've rebelled against authority and now you've entered the truth and you're listening to the true people who are telling you the truth and everything else. You know, the Candace Owens, the Jordan Petersons, the Nick Fuentes, who tell it how it is, when in fact they're actually just Judas goats designed to lead you back to Catholicism, one way or another. But that was the point, folks. That was the point, is to make you believe that you've exited the echo chamber, when in fact all you've done is entered the final echo chamber, which is much more seductive and completely centralized to the beast. So let's go over these people. These are people who have shaped culture and continue to shape conservatism specifically, and the push towards a theocracy, religion, cultural Christianity, religious nationalism, etc., one way or another. It's important to understand that not all of them are the same. Obviously, they have to have variety. There has to be one that's very extreme. There has to be one that's not so extreme. You've got the Nick Fuentes people who are obviously very extreme. And you've got the Russell Brand who are much more cultural type of people. But they both will lead you back to Sunday sacredness, the authority of the Pope, the Eucharist, etc., the visible church. All of them are pointing towards the same direction. They look differently and they speak differently, but they all point in the same direction. And in that way, it gives you the illusion that you are in this organic thing that's just happening, when in fact, it is a very cleverly disguised echo chamber, more centralized than ever before. With the liberal media, people became aware that all these, Operation Mockingbird, CIA puppet journalists are just reading their lines, and everybody's saying the same thing. It's a threat to our democracy. It's a threat to our democracy. Remember that clip that went around?
Hi, I'm Fox San Antonio's Jessica Headley.
And I'm Ryan Wolf.
Our greatest responsibility is to serve our
Treasure Valley communities,
the El Paso, Las Cruces communities,
Eastern Iowa communities,
Mid-Michigan communities.
We are extremely proud of the quality, balanced journalism that CBS 4 News produces.
But
we are concerned about troubling the irresponsible, one-sided news stories plaguing our country.
Plaguing our country.
The sharing of biased and false news has become all too common on social media. More alarming, some media outlets publish these same fake stories without checking facts first.
The sharing of biased and
false news has become all too common on social media.
More alarming, some media outlets publish things simply aren't true without checking facts first.
Unfortunately, some members of the media use their platforms to push their own personal bias and agenda to control exactly what people think. And this is extremely dangerous to our democracy.
With COVID, it's a threat to our democracy. Yeah. It's the same thing. You're in the same thing. Except it seems like it's organic. It seems like, because Nick Fuentes is extreme and then Jordan Peterson's a little more philosophical and Russell Brand's like new age and cultural, it seems like there's just this organic thing happening and they all kind of seem to be talking about the same thing one way or another, but they're different, so there must be some authenticity to it. When in fact, there's no authenticity. It's all fake. It's all giving you half-truths and designed to seduce you into an agreement. It seems like all of these heads of the Hydra are agreeing and they're nodding with each other, even though they're looking in different directions. They're actually part of the same beast. You get it? They're part of the same beast. So let's go over them. Remember that the Bible tells you that the mark is an or situation, head or hand. That means that there's going to be people who really believe in this delusion, and there's people that are going to go along with it. And they don't necessarily believe. Very important. That means, by default, that the devil's echo chamber is going to accommodate for both of these types of people. Do you get it? There's going to be people like Candace Owens, Nick Fuentes, who are very convincing in different ways and going to appeal to the people who are to take the mark on the head because they believe in it. And there's going to be people like Russell Brand, like some of these others that are a little more cultural, that are going to appeal to people who are like, okay, I'm going to do this Christian thing. That's nice. I'll be part of this, whatever is going on. Certainly better than being a Muslim. And appeal to the head, the hand. So both of the sides of the echo chamber are there. And that's revealed to you in the Bible. Isn't that profound? Isn't that profound that was written 2,000 plus years ago? What a profound thought that all these things were written a long time ago for our edification. So anyway, the echo chamber is going to have its extremists and its cultural ones, but in the end, they're both pointing you back to the same beast. And that's what you need to know. It's one giant Catholic echo chamber. And this is what you need to inform people of. So let's go through the names. For the upteenth time, Matt Walsh, Catholic. Candace Owens, Catholic. Russell Brand, Catholic. Laura Ingraham, Catholic. Jack Posobiec, Catholic. Steve Bannon, Catholic. Nick Fuentes, Catholic. Megyn Kelly, Catholic. Corey Lewandowski, Catholic. Janine Pirro, Catholic. Brett Baer, Catholic. Piers Morgan, Catholic. Bill Hemmer, Catholic. General Flynn, Catholic. Eva Vladinger Broek, whatever how you pronounce her last name, Catholic. She's like the female Charlie Kirk of Europe. Nice blonde Aryan girl, resurrecting the nationalist spirit of the Europeans. She's a Catholic. Turning Point USA. Of course, you have Erica Kirk, who's the Knights of Malta, Catholic, and Charlie Kirk, who has passed away, but he was very, very Catholic friendly, especially towards the end. Very ecumenical, very favorable words to say about the Pope, and probably was converting to Catholicism. I talk about that in my Venerable Day of the Sun episode number 20. Rupert Murdoch. He's one of the major influential people of the media. He's been knighted by the Pope, even though he's a quote-unquote Protestant. He's donated millions to Catholic causes. You tell me how that works. John C. Malone. He's the chairman of the largest voting shareholder of many companies like Liberty Media, Liberty Global, Warner Brothers, Discovery, and Curate Retail Group. All of these have news agencies, news things like CNN, for example. He's the largest voting and stakeholder. Catholic, probably a Knight of Malta member. Then you have Jordan Peterson. He's probably going to be Catholic pretty soon at the time of this video. That's my guess. His wife is Catholic. James O'Keefe. Can't really find too much information on him, but a lot of very Catholic-friendly attitudes and interviews and various things like this. Martha McCallum, same thing. Can't really figure out what she is, but very Catholic-friendly. On top of all that, then you have your token Protestants like Matt Gaetz and Tucker Carlson. Tucker Carlson is an Episcopalian, which is basically just a Catholic who flunked Latin. I think Matt Gaetz is Southern Baptist, but it doesn't really matter. You know how these things work, folks. You know how these things work. So that's over 20 really influential people in this Christian nationalist revival, quote unquote, MAGA delusion that is sweeping the world. And what are they all doing, folks? What are they all doing? What do you think they're going to do? They're all pointing you to the Catholic Church, one way or another, some of them more aggressively than others, obviously. Don't let that fool you. Oh, he's not really a Catholic. No, don't let that fool you. Because again, there's the head and the hand. The devil had his liberal side and his hardcore traditionalist side that he needs to integrate. He needs to integrate these people because after the French Revolution, he created the dialectic of left and right. You need these two dialectics to move around, to move the agenda forward. Now the agenda's done, so we need to integrate these people somehow. So we need people to appeal to all shapes and sizes and flavors. So don't let the diversity of beliefs, quote unquote, because it's not really diversity, don't let that fool you. All of these people are heads of the beast, and they're pointing you back towards the beast. So what do you do with this information? What are you going to do? Do you think it's meaningless? Do you think it's, who cares? It doesn't really matter. I'm not nothing to worry about. Hopefully, I've made you think again. Again, there's lots and lots of hours in the library explaining all of these things. And if you've watched my videos, you know exactly what's going on. Students of history will notice, quote unquote, notice, they'll be true noticers, that this is not just a coincidence, but rather very intentional. And if it's very intentional, imagine the power that they have to be able to create an echo chamber and put their people in place, because you can't be on the world stage unless you are a puppet. That's why I said what I said about Charlie Kirk, and I maintain that. He was a puppet. The most optimistic possible understanding is that Charlie Kirk was maybe a Christian, but extremely compromised. Nobody knows the heart, only God. Based on everything I've seen, I'm not that optimistic. So anyway, there's that. If all of these people had Goldstein or Steinberg as their last names, nobody would be a conservative anymore, right? Nobody would be listening to them. But because they're Catholic, nothing to worry about. Nothing to worry about, no problem. And this is the problem, folks. This is the problem that modern Christians have. They are ignorant of history and they're ignorant of the Bible. So they will perish. So I hope that you do something with this information. Again, whether you share that video or you share the information in the video with them, you let them know, you make them realize that, hey, you're looking at Jew left and right, when in fact the Catholic echo chamber is forming and now already is around you, and it is influencing culture and moving people to the final delusion. The image of the beast, the resurrected power that once was, will be again. And people are oblivious to it. If you need to get edified, then get edified on these important truths using the library. Don't be deceived, because what is coming will appear as the will of God on earth. It's going to appear as the will of God, my friends. When Satan is transfigured as an angel of light and transformed as an angel of light, and his ministers are ministers of righteousness, right? Quote unquote righteousness. That is because Satan deceives you into believing that what he is doing with you is the will of God. Satan's role as a deceiver is to make you convinced that you're worshiping God by actually worshiping the devil. Of course, the people in the higher places are aware that they're worshiping the devil because he's their God. But the point is to deceive you, the goyim, into believing that you're worshiping God when in fact you're actually worshiping the devil. Because in their mind, if the devil can get worshipped, then maybe he can win. In their twisted reality. So who knows exactly? I don't even pretend to put my mind in their minds. But this is how they operate, right? So be wise, be smart. Don't let these things overwhelm you. Also, it's important to focus on a gratitude practice and to have, good practices that you're engaging in, like keeping the Sabbath and resting on the seventh day mindfully, refreshing yourself, because these things can be very exhausting. Nevertheless, you must sharpen your mind. You must sharpen your mind and you must help others because the time is near. So learn the truth, because what is coming will be very, very deceptive, and most people will fall for the delusion. I hope you won't be one of them, and I hope that your friends and family won't be one of them either. We'll see you next time. Take care, and God bless.